Okay. Hello. We are coming in live for the Reboot Show on our weekly Tuesday night live. Tonight, Amy Smith and Luke Stowe with me, as always. If you are coming in live on LinkedIn, please make sure that you drop a 1 below. Let us know where you're coming in from. If you're coming in on the replay, please drop a 2 below. So to get started, I know that there's a lot happening of recent, guys, and one of the things in particular that is of keen interest, particularly for technology companies, but also more broadly every business in the corporate sector, is this growing relationship and collaboration, if you like, between corporate businesses and social enterprises. So maybe to set the scene, Luke, do you want to share with us what you're seeing in that space?
Yeah, it was a good announcement this week actually by SAP, which it doesn't often make the news, and it's interesting, to get them to come out and say something is like this, but really positive. SAP worldwide is part of their 1 billion lives program, which is about how they can positively impact 1 billion lives, which is their ambition. They have a 5x5 program for 2025, which is taking 5% of their addressable spend and contributing that towards social enterprises. So through their own procurement process, being able to buy social enterprise products and services, so they can, have a really good impact on those that are in society, which I think is a really great thing. More and more technology companies are doing this, and of course, technology plays a great role in social enterprises anyway. But I think this is a really great move from SAP, and they should be congratulated about it. I think it's worth about 60 or maybe $80 million US.
Wow!
So it's a big amount of money. SAP is a huge spender in terms of their addressable spend, and so to allocate 5% of that towards social enterprises is a really great thing.
It's a decent chunk of money. So, Amy, for the people working in this space, I think certainly what we see is that a lot of startups, particularly in say 2020, are founded on the basis of having that sort of purpose beyond profits focus, and so there are a lot more businesses being established in the social enterprise space. So, thinking about the people who are building these social enterprises, how do you think they feel after hearing news like that about what SAP have decided to do? I mean, I can imagine that's a huge incentive for people.
Yeah, I think it's a great move forward because, social enterprises, they've been around for probably, 10 or so years in terms of like the popularity and the real focus on these social enterprises, and they've really kind of exploded. So I think it's a real win-win to now have the big corporate players now take these social enterprises very seriously and in a way, are really helping them. And in turns, the social enterprises are actually learning from the way that the big corporates operate as well. Like I know there's lots of employee programs that are out there from different organizations where they're actually volunteering and their staff are volunteering at these social enterprises to help lift up their businesses as well. They're sort of leveraging resources and information and insights as well. So I think it's pretty huge, and I think it's about time. I think this has been a long time coming, and I think it's a great initiative by SAP, and others will follow as well.
Yeah, it's huge. I was just going to say, we've got some of our regulars on. So David from Connecticut in the US and Jenny from Sydney, Dion from across the ditch in New Zealand. I hope you're all well over there. You'll be able to come here soon, I think, to Australia anyway. But it's good to see you all. I'm wondering how you feel about social enterprises and their contribution, and also, should tech companies give more? Like, is 5% enough? Interested in your views.
Well, I think it's interesting, right? And it's good to hear your thoughts on this, Luke, particularly from a corporate perspective. Traditionally, sort of a lot of corporates, what they do is focus on how, being corporate, corporate social responsibility, et cetera. And, in many cases, they would do they would have a corporate social responsibility in a way that wasn't actually that impactful. And generally speaking, in quite generic ways, is quite surface level, and people would often criticize corporates and say, you're just doing that to ensure that, you manage your public relations. So it'd be great to hear from you, Luke, around, so this, for example, with this SAP situation and what they've decided to do, how does that differ to what's traditionally been done? It sounds like they're using their procurement practices to really look for actually an economic opportunity with engaging with these social enterprises instead of just making a branding and marketing exercise.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, to get this perspective, traditional business models are built around, I need to make profit and I'm making profit and therefore I sell my goods and services. A social enterprise is making money. Yeah, they're still profitable mostly. They can be non-for-profit. Most are there for profit. but they're doing it for a social cause. And so therefore, a great example of this is I think the Avrinda Eye Clinic in India, which basically gives services, towards people who need, cataracts removed and a variety of different eye services. And you pay for, for what you can afford. And so for those people who pay, that covers the people who can't pay. And so that business is still profitable, but it's providing a service to everyone, even though the example, not everyone can afford to pay. So that's the type of thing we're talking about. And corporates, I think, are getting onto this because it's a really good thing to give something back in a meaningful way and to pick something that you believe in and you're passionate about and then give it back to society in that way. I think that's a really positive thing. And I can only see, to Amy's point, employers and their employees getting behind this. If my business was doing this, and I better check with myself that we need to probably do something. But, I think along those lines, I'd be feeling pretty happy if I was working for an organisation that was doing this type of thing. So I can only see this continuing. And I can see a few people that we've got online here.
So it'd be great to hear from you on this point, your thoughts on what Dion said, which is around social enterprise. There's more influence now in the marketplace psychosocially, yet traditional business has the business skill and generally the capital. So it was only a matter of time before smart traditional businesses recognise and leverage that. What are your thoughts on that, Amy?
Yeah, well, I think it's true. I think particularly, with a lot of millennials now in the workplace, I think that has a huge impact on the rise of social enterprises as well, given that a lot of millennials are really looking to make that impact. They're looking for purpose within their work. So they're looking for that, like Luke said, that purpose beyond that profit model as well. And so I think, definitely is taking on more of a just normal general consensus as the norm.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting, just sort of as an extension to that, about the SAP example. So I think in particular, from what I understand, they're focusing on their procurement and trying to incorporate social enterprise into their procurement where it sort of makes sense. And, I think that is even an interesting conversation to be having right now during this time where I think I've heard you reference it before, Luke, that globalization has largely been threatened. So what that's meant is that all of our supply chains and all of those relationships have been threatened. So it really is the perfect time for every brand and business and corporate to be rethinking their procurement practices and what their procurement looks like. Or maybe is it a perfect opportunity for them to be looking at social enterprise opportunities? Yeah,
look, I think SAP has been really smart about this. So the 5% that they are giving, to social enterprise, they're not giving. They're basically saying we'll spend that in social enterprises in our procurement processes. They've done that in, I think, Brazil, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. So they're sort of their starting places for that. And I think doing that in country is a really good thing to do. So to your point, allocating some of the money to a specific country and saying, well, we've got $1 million for Australia or $2 million for Brazil, what can we spend with social enterprises? I think that's a really smart thing. It definitely will increase, the work opportunities within those environments and give something back to the either the environment or socially as well. And we shouldn't forget about the environment. So it doesn't have to be for a social cause. It might be for an environmental cause. Yeah. And I think, our call out should be to technology companies to do this more. I think,
I think to Amy's point, like for every stakeholder, particularly employees, it's not uncommon to find employees who have been in a business, they've been loyal for however many years, despite the fact job security might be out the door in many people's opinions, but they've been with a corporate for a long time, and then that sentiment within the organisation becomes a bit stale. And, you sort of second question your alignment with your work, and particularly if you are of the millennial generation, where we are always looking for really meaningful work. I can imagine to this point that this is something that would be quite a good thing for sentiment within a corporate, is if you realise that your firm was actually starting to do something that you perceive to be of a greater good beyond profit.
Great question from Jenny. Who wants to have a go at answering that?
So we've got here from Jenny. Can you see that, Amy? We've got interest in your thoughts as to how to connect and cut through with large corporates. Often their process is at best not innovative, and often budgets allocated so far in advance. Therefore, small, smart misaligned with big, slow budgets. I'm not sure if Jenny's asking in terms of being able to enter into the corporate market with a startup. Jenny, if you could confirm for us. Did you guys have any preliminary thoughts on that? But that's my take on it.
I might have, just to guide this, and we'll see if we can land this for Jenny. a lot of big corporates have very large, complicated procurement processes for a reason. They want to get the best arrangements for themselves, and also they usually have panels where they have preferred suppliers, and you get on those preferred suppliers lists, you've got to have some background or have some
innovation. You've got to offer a good rebate in many cases.
Well, there's no such thing as kickbacks. This isn't something that happens within most corporates. It might happen, in sort of the backyards of some states. But no, look, sincerely, getting on those panels, and to get on those panels, you have to pass criteria. So I think if you're looking to cut through some of that, look, there are plenty of people, and particularly on LinkedIn and various different other social platforms, that you can get to give you some guidance of this. There are plenty of coaches out there that are procurement coaches. If you wanted to drop me an IM, an instant message on LinkedIn, Jenny, I could connect you with one of those. A gentleman I know who helps people, he's from a procurement background and can help you basically get into, try to get into some of the organisations or give you some advice on it. That's for sure. There's a lot going on in that procurement space. And I think the social enterprise call out is really from a commercial model. So, when you think about this, most of those businesses, the eye example or the eye medical example that's in India, there are lots of businesses already in place doing that. But the fact they've changed commercially that model, and so we're not going to charge for everything. We're going to charge for only when people can afford it, and they'll pay what they can afford. And here's our retail price. That's a change in the commercial model, right? So they've done a model here that enables them to be able to provide the services without, breaking their bank and breaking their customers' bank as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to hear from you, Amy, from I think from an employee perspective, and you would know this far better than I. Particularly in recent years, we've seen this rise of people talking about things like entrepreneurship, and a lot of people wanting to create some work alongside their full-time work on the basis that they are looking for that meaning beyond their employment and what they're actually doing. So what are your thoughts on, for example, corporates engaging with social enterprise as a way to maybe re-engage their existing workforce so that maybe they don't feel that sort of itch to start preparing to leave the organization to do something that is exciting in, for example, the startup landscape?
Yeah, you said the key word there is engagement, right? Because I think many organizations and employers turn a blind eye to this. They don't really know that it's going on because it doesn't necessarily come up in engagement surveys as well, because your employers aren't going to say, I'm secretly thinking about starting my own business and all those sorts of things. But 67% of, just taking millennials for an example, do want to start their own business and are thinking about that behind the scenes, even though they do have a full-time corporate job. So I think the organisations that can embrace this, and like SAP has done in terms of their 1 billion initiative that they've got going on, is really allowing these entrepreneurs, as you said, to sort of cut their teeth in the startup world and have a bit of variety and diversity to their roles and what they're doing as well, and feel like they're really making an impact, but doing that in a way that still ties them to that organisation. So they don't feel like they need to go externally and stand on their own 2 feet in order to get that and make that impact, but they're actually doing it as a way, through their company. And so, like you said, in terms of sentiment, that actually helps to bind the two together, and you're probably going to get more longevity out of your staff and employees for doing that. So I think the ones that can embrace that and, even thinking outside of social enterprises, but Google allows you to work on different projects that don't have anything to do with the actual work that you're doing for that reason, to create that diversity in your role and that variety.
Sorry, Amy. So Google in that actually encourage that of their employees.
Yeah, definitely. You're allowed to work on projects that maybe sit outside of your defined role. And that's a way, again, for helping with that innovation, helping with that creativity, and keeping your employees really engaged with the mission and vision of the company as well. And interestingly enough, a lot of their products are innovations that come out of those side projects from their employees as well. So it's actually a really great way to innovate within your company as well.
It's great to see Zoran and Cristiano online. I hope you're subscribing to the Reboot channel, guys. We see you most weeks. And we had a great question from, or a great point made from Dr. Karsten Bartish. A really good point being made. So, a kind of playbook. So saying that most corporates don't have a clue on how to do this. And, you know, providing some type of playbook to them might be a really good answer. I think that's a really great idea.
Well, this was sort of the next question I'm going to pose to you, Luke, actually, because you sort of had the call out before that technology brands should be looking at this. So, if you look at SAP, for example, they're focused on their procurement practices and using that as their sort of channel to market in terms of something that they can quite practically engage social enterprise on. But where would you even begin to start in terms of understanding how do we start to collaborate with social enterprise? Like, there's so many different functions and disciplines of a business. How do you do that process, particularly when quality is a serious concern?
Well, you know, I'm quite a pragmatic person. I think the thing you got to do is just start. So
the art of the start is to start.
The art of the start is to start. But, you know, like whether it's 5% or 2%, I mean, the global technology industry revenues is $890 billion.
So,
US.
sorry, are you saying that the technology industry has a responsibility to ensure that as a leading sector that they are engaging social enterprise?
Well, they have a choice, but I'm calling them out. I'm saying, like, you're earning, like, this is nearly a $900 billion US sort of industry. You know, you can cut some of that money out for your procurement processes and provide that to social enterprise. I think that's a really great cause. Or to Amy's point, if they're providing programs where they can let their employees be part of these social enterprises, or indeed create one and then support them if they grow that, I think that's a really great way of the technology businesses being part of it. But of course, we do know that a lot of technology companies donate, and we've got to call this out, they donate a lot of technology and a lot of time towards social enterprises. So some of these enterprises not only get to be part of the procurement processes, but they also provide capability from their own organizations to help stand them up, to help get the analytics right, to help get the business models right, to support them.
So just in terms of thinking about the practicalities of it and considering this, Dion makes a good point, and he's called out something you mentioned, Amy. So smart companies will form hybrid models quickly, or at very least create a team that links the inside running of traditional business with outside social enterprises, which is exactly what Amy was speaking about. I think that's such a key in terms of taking those practical steps and starting to look at that. Amy, what would you say the role of existing employees could be in terms of maybe helping companies to identify how they could start actually engaging social enterprise?
Yeah, well, it's great because, I mean, most employees will have a particular interest in a certain area anyway, you know, within their lives. I think as a society now, we're becoming more socially conscious and aware. So I think most people, if you actually just talk to your employees, like, how simple is that, right? Actually speak to your employees and ask them what they're really passionate about. What have they seen that's really caught their interest? You know, you're all on Facebook, LinkedIn, social media. There's all sorts of companies and new things that pop up all of the time that catch our attention. So there might just be a really good way of creating some alignment there where your employees are already passionate about something. And so it may mean that it's a really good fit with your organization's vision and values and mission as well. And it's just about linking the two together.
I think there's a really good point being made. It's a LinkedIn user, so not wanting to share their identity. You know, please share if you feel like we very trustworthy people here on the Reboot Show. But you're making a great point here where traditional businesses are around engagement and relationships, and how do social enterprises fit within those type of traditional markets? Technology is a great enabler here. I think that's where I'm sort of positioning, is that technology is the enabler for these social enterprises to engage with these bigger corporates. You know, we talked about procurement practices. Again, technology is the great enabler here that connects people and lets them do things that are socially acceptable, you know, with integrity. You know, one of my favourite social causes is ethically picked coffee beans. What about you and Amy? What are your socially acceptable?
Love me some coffee.
Yeah, coffee's always great.
Coffee is life, Luke. Coffee is life.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that people, like it's interesting, right? Because particularly from, say, a consumer product perspective, like it's quite, a sort of warming experience to go through. And when you're picking, say, for example, between brands, and you've got all of these brands to consider, often I find myself personally, it is the one that looks maybe a bit more organic or a little bit more homemade or whatever, that is contributing to something bigger, that you sort of are inclined to support based on the fact that you know it is for a greater good than the actual profits of the business. But I think one of the challenges with that though has been, you hear about companies, I think it was Thank You Water, for example, and it happens all the time where these organizations have these great missions, these great values, and it turns out it's a complete and utter rort. And so then that creates a lot of fear in people's minds around, well, who can I actually believe in this space? Who's actually doing the right thing in the social enterprise environment? So it can be difficult in that scenario. But I think as a human, naturally, you are inclined to support the ones that are doing good. What would you say, Amy?
Yeah, no, I agree with you as well, for sure. Yeah, I think it's you've got to go where it feels quite authentic to you as well, and in terms of just there has to be some sort of a passion there behind it, and do your research to make sure that you are backing a company that walks the walk and talks the talk.
So apart from encouraging technology brands to go out and ensure that they are engaging with social enterprise, what's the other key takeaway for this evening? What should everyone be tuning into this week?
Well, we've got a lot going on our Reboot Show page. We've got a lot of activities coming up and some pretty exciting segments that, I know we've got the news on a Friday, which everyone tunes into, and Tuesday Night Live, we've got a great group of followers. And thanks so much for everyone. Dion, Jenny, Dr. Carsten, the LinkedIn user who didn't want to give his or her name, and of course, Zoran, who's always missing up these $1 billion contracts and missing flights just to tune in for us. We really appreciate you guys being on board, and we hope you subscribe. But if you wanted to go to the Reboot Show page, Amy, there's a lot happening, isn't there?
Absolutely. Reboot Show page on LinkedIn. You'll see all the latest updates for all the upcoming segments that we've got coming out. We've got some really exciting ones coming soon. And then on YouTube as well, have a look at the Reboot Show and subscribe on there. You can see all the past segments on there and many more to come too.
And as always, every Tuesday night, you can catch us live LinkedIn and on YouTube at 8:15 p.m. or thereabouts, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And if you are coming in live tonight, please make sure you drop a 1 below. Let us know where you're coming in from. If you're coming in on the replay, drop a 2 below. And we will see you on the next segment on Newsfeed for the Reboot Show.
Subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.